You're a poopy head, and I don't like your hair, and I don't like the pimples on your forehead. Therefore, what you have to say is invalid. This is one of my favorite non-arguments. And by favorite, I mean really most hated or favorite to point out, which is what I call the poopy head non-argument, otherwise known as the ad hominem fallacy. Ad hominem means against the person, and this is something that people do rather than engaging with the statement, rather than engaging with any kind of argument, rather than presenting any kind of contrary point of view or any kind of contrary evidence to what a person is saying. They just kind of drive by and call the person a Nazi or whatever pejorative that they want to use, and think that that substitutes for any kind of substantive statement. And I think people tend to use this because you grow up with this idea that when people, quote, argue, they fight. And that's not really what an argument is. An argument is a supported statement. So when you make an argument, you're going to make a statement and you're going to support it with evidence. So you rebut an argument by, again, supporting it with evidence. You don't rebut an argument by saying that you don't like the pimples that I have on my head today. You don't rebut an argument by saying that I'm autistic or retarded or something like that. That's not a rebuttal. That's just calling me a poopy head. Poopy head is anytime somebody attacks a person or makes a statement about somebody's person, all you have to do is in your mind reduce it down to the word poopy head, and you see exactly what they're doing. They're acting like a 6-year-old. Okay, this is something that children do to try to hurt each other, is to throw out these insults. But of course, they don't really have any potency or meaning, especially if you are just throwing out insults that are completely irrelevant to any statement that a person's making. And you can make a small argument for ad hominem, and I'll talk about that at the end. But, if I make a statement about the construction of a plot in a given work of art, your rebuttal should be, well, I see the plot as this. Let me give you these scenes and these pieces of dialogue as examples to support how I view the plot and my analysis of the plot. That's a rebuttal. A poopy head would be, I don't like the way that you viewed the plot. So you're fat, autistic, ugly, retarded, and you probably smell bad. Bye. That's not an argument. That's the poopy head. So again, insulting someone is not making an argument. You have to make a statement that's supported by evidence. Now, I will make one sort of defense of the ad hominem, and this is only has to do with the idea of credibility. Usually you don't want to attack somebody's credibility. You want to deal directly with their statement and directly with the data of the statement that they're doing if you want to actually win an argument or win a debate. But in some cases, if a person comes on, if a person comes on and they're telling you everything that you need to do to change your diet to be healthier, and that person happens to be like 150 pounds overweight, you may not want to listen to their advice, but you can certainly say, well, I would assume that if your dietary advice held true, that I would see its effects in you. And that is basically a type of ad hominem that's valid, because I think you can make that assumption. If somebody's arguing for honesty and they are not being honest, then that argument is undercut by the source. And I do think that you can make that argument, but that's only things that are highly relevant to the statement. The arrangement of somebody's body when they're making a statement about a story has nothing to do with the statement about that story, right? Especially, and if you're doing things that are completely irrelevant, like calling somebody retarded or whatever insult that you want to do, somebody is stupid, an idiot, and it's just poopy head. You're just saying poopy head because, and it's always one of these things, like if you were really more intelligent than the person that you're calling an idiot, you would actually know what an argument is, and you would bother, arguing a point rather than calling them a poopy head and thinking that hurting somebody's feelings negates what they have said, because it does not. I don't get my feelings hurt, not by YouTube comments, but even if I did, that doesn't change anything about the evidence that or anything about the argument that I make, or anything about the points I make about anything, or any kind of evidence that I happen to present. It just doesn't change any of that, which is why it's not a valid debating technique in a real, authentic debate scenario. Not like these presidential debates that people see, which usually more often than not are just like an ad hominem fest. It's just attacking the person's character and attacking the person left and right. So I think that's maybe, people watch presidential debates and like, oh, well, that's how you beat somebody with an argument, is you call them a poopy head. It's like, no, not really. Not in the real world of intellectual honesty and and civil discussion especially. And so that's the next point, sort of the final point I make. Imagine you want to convince somebody that your position is correct, right? If I want to convince somebody that my position's correct, I'm usually going to want to present them with information that they're going to take in and internalize and find to be true. And I'm also going to interact with them in such a way that they are going to be willing to accept that information. So generally speaking, if you want someone to see things your way, you don't want to use ad hominems. You don't want to lead with "you're an idiot," because what a person sees when they do that is like, well, I'm just being attacked, so I'm just not going to listen to anything that person has to say. So if you actually want to convince anybody of anything, you just need to remove ad hominems from your entire approach if you can. You're not going to win any friends on the internet or anywhere else by name calling. You start calling people stupid, then, especially to their face, you're not really going to convince them of the righteousness of your position. And as a last bit, the point of any good discussion or any debate is actually not to win the debate. It's to discover the truth. And that's another point that needs to be made. When you're using an ad hominem, you're not revealing anything that is true. And when I get into all these other non-arguments that I have in my head, at least, then that's the same thing. You're not uncovering the truth. You're not making any grand discoveries about what is or is not true. Therefore, you need to just avoid using them, right? And anytime you go into a debate, you go into just a casual conversation, you want to see, you want to have people's input. There's a reason on these types of videos that I always ask, like, what are your opinions on it? Because this is my saying of the month, I suppose. You only sharpen a razor with a stone, and the coarsest stone always goes first. So the first thing that hits that razor to sharpen it is what's coarse, and then you get to finer and finer grades of stone. So you only make an argument, you only make a position, you only make an idea sharper by testing it against other ideas. And that's an important concept to sort of internalize. It's a very it's sort of the heart of philosophy, and I think it should apply to art or anything else that you do. If you want to make your art good, you need to really seek out ways to make it good, not just assume that your art is good because it is. You have to always be testing it. And if you have a position, if you have a belief, you need to be testing that belief very seriously. Otherwise, that belief is just becomes like a mimetic piece of faith and not really something authentic to yourself. So anyway, that's that. Please do tell me what you think about that. And you may call me a poopy head if you want. I promise it won't hurt my feelings because, you're just calling me a poopy head. So use whatever pejoratives you want to describe my awfulness or the fact that I have a couple pimples on my head today. I'm sure some people, if I don't point them out in the video, other people are like, you have lots of pimples. Like, what does that have to do with anything? I have some pimples today, whatever. So tell me what you think. Don't forget to visit my websites, dbspress.com, davidvstewart.com, and let me know what you want to see on the channel. I'm always happy to deliver if I can, and have a great, great day.